Have you ever wondered why some voices get heard while others just get lost in the noise? It's not luck, it's actually strategy and giving yourself permission. Today, we're talking with Carl Richards, a keynote speaker, author, and a visual artist who helps people talk about money in a radically different way. He didn't just show up, he made people pay attention. And we're going to break down those moments, the decisions that he made. We're going to talk about some of the good things that happened, maybe even some of the bad things that happened. And the ultimate goal here is for you to have a great playbook that you're going to be able to download and say, okay, I want to do some of the things that Carl did. We're going to give it all to you. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Halloran, and I've spent years helping build authority and grow for experts specifically to help them stand out and rise above the noise. Carl, welcome to the show.
Matt, come on. How fun is this?
Dude, I went back. I interviewed you more than once for our old podcast, and I'm so excited about talking to you about what we're doing with this new show, because you are such a perfect example of somebody who rose above the noise. You gave yourself permission to be the Carl that you wanted to be. And dude, I mean, you're booked all the time. I know that you're speaking as much as you want. You have all of this wonderful recognition, plus you're wildly influential. So let's rewind. Let's turn the tide back on the clock here. When did you have that epiphany that you weren't just going to be like everybody else, that you really wanted to go in a different direction?
That's such a good question. Well, first of all, thank you. That was very, very kind of you. The challenge with this is that it's so easy to look back and create a really nice narrative, right?
Yeah.
But at the time I was super scared. I was scared, and then I was about to use some farm language there, like super scared. At every step, and I could tell you stories, you can tell me what would be helpful here, but at every step, I didn't know what I was doing. And there was no, and I want to talk a little bit about that feeling for sure. Mm-hmm. So let's not lose it, because I'm sure you'd enjoy that too.
Yeah.
But I was these are all these things that now look so smart were all, in my own mind, let alone other people's minds, just like, that's a really bad idea. That will never work. And I was and whether they worked or not, I was addicted to them. Like I couldn't stop. I tried to stop. And so it was more like an experience of being compelled. So that's one piece of it. The other piece of it that's important, and then we can investigate whatever you want, is I don't like, well, okay, I love the sense of having ground beneath my feet, but I know as soon as I have it that I need to get moving. And so we've incorporated, it's a principle of the business. Like our statement about marketing is to be who we really are and go the whole way and count on magic. Like that's our marketing strategy, right? Like, and so whenever I feel it's a little bit of, it's like desperate. I can put it like I'm rubbing my fingers together because I can feel the tenor of the feeling of like, I start going to look for case studies. I go look at, okay, like I just did this with my new book coming out. I just looked at James Clear's website and Shane Parrish at Farnham Street's website. I'm like, just build one of those. And then I was about to do it. And then I just felt this feel like I can't. And so I'm not suggesting that's good for anyone. I'm just saying that's how it was for me. And then the last piece of this is I feel like I have a fancy feelings budget. So I have lots of fancy feelings, but I've got an allocation.
Okay.
And I've got to be really careful about where I'm going to spend those fancy feelings. So sometimes I'm just like, oh, just do a site like that, or that logo's fine. But then other times I'm like, I'll be like, that logo's fine. And then I can feel myself reaching into the fancy feelings bucket and being like, no, it's not. And then I'll even get, no, don't. And you're going to care about the color, aren't you? You're going to care. And I'm like, yeah. So I have to be really careful about how to spend the fancy feelings. So where do you want to go from here? Good luck with that.
Well, we can go a lot of different directions, man.
Yeah.
But I really do want to talk about not just the feelings. So that feeling of of excitement and the constant desire for change, but also it's something you have to give yourself permission to do.
Yeah.
Where do
Yeah.
you think you got that origin of that permissive ability that you could say to yourself, okay, Carl, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, I think this would be really helpful. I hope. And I don't think of this as self-help. I think of this as an adventure journal. So I'll just tell you the story. Right. So get this. I'm a kid from the hills in Utah. I've never taken a writing class in my life other than the ones that I think you had to. I've never taken an art class. And somehow through a story that we don't need to tell here, but somehow through a story, the New York Times says, hey, would you do these for us? And I knew enough to say yes, and then like kind of figure it out later. And so there I am sitting in Park City, Utah, looking out at the mountains with a stack of cardstock and a pile of Sharpies. And I didn't even have, like, it was literally cardstock and Sharpies. And I'd do it and I'd throw them over my shoulder and there'd be like a pile. This was Thursday every Thursday morning, because the deadline was Thursday at 10 for the column. And I'd just be like, I got nothing. And then I would scan them. And I always mention this because it was a Fujitsu Snap scanner, right? I didn't even have a flat bed. It's like $99 at Staples or whatever. I'd scan them in and then I'd go to send them. I'd hit send and I'd have this familiar feeling that it happened, there's 500, it happened at least 100 times. I would feel over my left shoulder, the door was over there, and the door had this like frosted glass, kind of smoked glass. So you could tell if there was a person out there, but you couldn't tell anything about them. Mm-hmm. And there'd always be a person. Like after I hit send to my editor, I'd feel the presence and I'd look over there and the door would open. This is all in my mind, right? The door would open and this person would come through sort of like, and it grew to be, give me a second. It grew to be this guy, just like this into your screen. Justin Castelli sent me this after hearing the story.
That's fantastic.
So Mr. Burns would show up and say, what is that a Sharpie? Is that a Fujitsu Snap? Like, do they know? Do they wait till, is this you? I mean, these are the hills. Have you ever taken a journalism class? Like, and then he would reach up on the wall and there would be this big giant switch, like the railroad switches that said Carl's career, and it would be in the on position. And he would just go, kunk, turn it. And I would just be like, every week. And then one day, and I'm almost done here. One day I remember I was at the start line of a mountain bike race. And I looked over my left shoulder and Mr. Burns was there. And then I was like, wait a second. He was at my wedding. And then I was like, wait, he was at the birth of all my kids. And then I was like, wait, Mr. Burns has been to all the good part. Now, this is just my personification. You can do it, use whatever you want. But imposter syndrome was at all the coolest things I've ever done. So then I had this huge switch in my head. And this is the permission. I had this huge switch in my head, which was, why would I ever want to get rid of him? Like the thing I wish I'd been better at was taking more rest in between, because just the constant exposure kind of ended me up in New Zealand. But the idea of like, wait, I've now built my whole life around repeated and frequent exposure to Mr. Burns. And if I go very long without it, I'm like, I'm not pushing the edge enough. And so then like, who gave you permission? And then I actually wrote a column about this called, I declared myself the self-declared king of permission granting. And I, in the New York Times, said, if you have something you want to do, email me. Matt, I got thousands of emails.
Wow.
And these were emails like, I want to move to Ireland and write poetry. I want to take Fridays off. Can I tell you one quick story? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm reading through these emails. I want to take Friday off to be with my daughter. And you're like, permission granted, permission granted. I just was waving my permission granting wand. Not that anyone needs permission, but I find it to be helpful. One of them says, thank you so much. I just resigned. And I did the same thing. I was like, wait, do you have a plan? And she was like, of course, this resignation, I'm a senior partner at the most influential law firm on Wall Street. This resignation letter's been in my top drawer for 2 years.
Oh,
I just want to move back to my hometown and help my parents with their farm. I followed up on a bunch of those 2 years later. I sent emails saying, hey, tell me what. That lady was like, Carl, you won't believe it. I moved back. I helped my dad deal with all the legal stuff to get the farm in shape. He passed away 6 months later, which I wouldn't have, and now I've started the farm's in shape, and I've started a small law office in my hometown helping other farmers do it. I would have never done it without your permission. Now, of course, they don't really need my permission, but I just find it helpful to be like, if anybody listening to this needs permission, Matt and I will grant it to you. You don't need it.
yeah.
You don't need it. You just give it to yourself and realize that Mr. Burns is going to show up and you're going to go, hey man, I'm glad you're here. Let's get to work.
Yeah. Okay. So you throw a lot of stuff. I mean, so you've given yourself permission. So what happens when you give yourself permission to something and it doesn't work out like you planned?
Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It's a real bummer. Like and you be bummed and you be sad and sometimes you be mad and you process that. And I have ways of processing that. They typically involve going into the high mountains or on my bike or out in the backyard or at the gym. And my wife knows, like we have a little signal, little secret handshake. It's sort of like, get out.
Yeah.
But there's no way around it. This idea of like, oh, fail fast. I love failure. Yeah, fine, whatever. But so some of them are really painful and they're public and they take time and you get ridiculed and and sometimes people who you care deeply about might even say something publicly and so there's that. And then I've since learned, give yourself permission to be just bummed about it. And then you take as much rest as you need. And then you'll feel this small little thing start growing. It'll be unspeakable at first, but it'll just be this little feeling where you'll be like, I guess I got to do it again, don't I? Mm-hmm. And then you'd be like, not yet. And you should say in your head, that's okay, not yet. And you get another night's sleep and the next morning it'll be a little stronger. And you'd be like, not. And it will grow and you'll do it again. And guess what? You'll repeat that for your whole life. And that's how it works. And just the only thing I ask of myself and anybody else is like, don't let it beat you up so much that you stop, right? Take as much time as you need. And then you can do things around the edges, like turn all the stuff off, get rid of all the comments, ignore the noise, delete without a second thought any comment that is not critical, but any comment that lacks any thought, right? Like if it's not thoughtful, it can be critical and thoughtful. I love those. Those are like gold. But if it's not thoughtful, like it's clear somebody didn't even read the book and they're waving their hands about the book, just delete. Yeah. So that's how I handle it. How do you handle it?
Well, thank you for asking that. So my wife and I have very similar signals, but for me, it's when my shoulders really start creeping up massively. She'll say, okay, go jump in the pool, go for a walk. You need to go in the woods, and that sort of stuff. And so, I've been with her for 30 years. And so she knows me pretty well. And
we just celebrated our 30th.
Hey, yeah. But I think it's important for us to give ourselves permission. It's okay to not succeed. Failure, you can attach whatever emotional, value you want to that, but not everything is going to succeed. In fact, I'm not a sports guy and everybody knows that, but one of my favorite analogies is baseball, right? You bat 350 and you're in the Hall of Fame, right? That means you're 65% of the time you're missing you suck, right? So we just put way too much pressure on ourselves. And with that pressure, so many people, Carl, are trying to become more and more influential. So they have like their specific niche that they want to really make an impact on. When you look at other influencers, because you are wildly influential, when you look at what mistakes do you see that they're making?
Yeah, it's the mistake I make all the time, which is just looking what has worked for somebody else and doing that. And mainly at the tactical level. Like there's a mindset level of what works for people that can be really useful. But the tactical level of like, what does the website look like? They wrote a book. I call that success porn. And it's really a bummer because it hurts all of us, where people write like the 7 steps to repeating so-and-so's success. If they're strategic or mindset level stuff, they can be valuable, but they're often really shallow tactics. So looking at what other people do. Now, I think that can get you above average success.
Okay.
I don't think the thing you pointed to is more of an impact thing. I think impact is saying, like, this is the feeling I have. Like, okay, I want to make an impact in this market or this area. I want to do this thing. I can feel it. It's driving me crazy. It's like a sliver just underneath the skin that you didn't know was there until you and you feel it. So you're like, okay, great. Who else has done it? Mm-hmm. And then you go learn. You do all that stuff. Like learn, look at all of it. This is called divergent thinking, right? Like you gather all the examples you can see. And I think of this as a widening funnel. You're like looking and realized in that process, it's a lot like trying to buy new shoes by reading the reviews on Amazon. Like you don't feel more clarity doing that. You feel more confused. You might even get like pissed, like you kind of get upset. So you're looking at all those. And then there gets to be a point where you go, cool, I've seen it all. Now to hell with it. You know what I mean? Like tear it all up. Like do that first though, then tear it all up and be like, what do I want to do? And I call that the sun salutation moment. That's what my wife calls it. Just like, I'm going to just go and go. And this is where emergent thinking happens, an emergent thought. And then you get some ideas and you start to narrow in and you converge on an idea and you say, I'm going to do that. Right. And you run little experiments. But I love that feeling of like copy, tear it up, do your thing.
Yeah. I wish people just gave themselves permission to do their thing, right? I mean, it's such a nice confidence builder when you can see somebody and you can point at them and say, gosh, I want to achieve that level of success, and you want to do some emulation of what they're doing, but you're not them. I mean, it's that whole, you might as well be yourself because everybody else is taken. And you use the word tactic, which, by the way, was brilliant because that moves us into the second part of the podcast. So well done on that, sir. Because now we're going to talk about the tactics, right? So you actually have tactics. So we ask all of our guests on the show to come up with 3 tactics that are actionable items that our listeners can put into place immediately after they get this. They can download your Carl Richards playbook too. But the first one that you have is be clear. Can you elaborate on that as a tactic?
Yeah. And I realize that these are a little unsatisfactory in terms of like tactics because they feel a little bit more like mindsets, but that's okay because I'll pull that trick all day long. Being clear to me is like, and that like you should. I feel like, and I've done this hundreds of times with people, and I've had it done to me, and it's so helpful to just be like, who. The question I would ask here is like, who's the work for? 2 questions. And Seth Godin introduced me to these questions. Who's it for and what does it do? And if that's not clear, right, like nothing else matters. So spending a lot of time around SEO work or like there's a million things that you can hide behind until you can get your H1 headline on your website that is like clear. Being really, really, who's it for? And that's so scary because it by definition means you are going to have to say it is not for. By saying who it's for, you are by definition saying who it's not for. And that feels all sorts of like, oh no, like it just triggers a bunch of scarcity problems. Oh no. And then we can almost, I think almost anytime, especially with advisors, almost anytime you dig into an advisor's real success, it's because they got really, really clear about a very, very narrow who. They're like, it's for these people. And I had a friend who his business was for senior executives at a specific company, which I won't mention, senior executives at a big tech company. Great. He went further, of Indian descent.
Oh, wow. That's next level, dude. Because
there was a level, there was like, it allowed him, and he happened to be of Indian descent, but it allowed him to understand some of the ways they approached money and benefits and et cetera. Like he knew here's what it did. It allowed him to nail the problem in one sentence. Right? Like, by nail the problem, I mean in their words, not your guess of their words, but their actual words. And that's what I mean by be clear.
You know, Carl, we take people through in our onboarding process when they become clients of ProudMouth. We talk to them, and we actually do math, right? And so I'll use an example in the St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul area. There was an advisor who wanted to work with medical sales reps. Okay. So I said to him, how many medical sales reps are in that tri-state area, or whatever the hell it's called, whatever. Anyway, sister cities, that's what it is. And he said, like 100,000. And I was like, first off, holy crap, that's a lot of people. And I said, secondly, how many of those could you take on as clients? And he said, 10 a year. I said, okay, so let's get a little bit more specific. And so we went down to a very, like you said, very specific company, right? And so he only worked with medical salespeople who actually were making good money, who got big bonus checks, who worked for this one specific company. And he's killing it, dude. He's absolutely killing it because that level of specificity was there. Now, this leads beautifully into your second mindset / tactic, which is to be generous. Elaborate, please.
Yeah, I think that if you're clear about who it's for, and by the way, I think the reason for that is people will make decisions to work with you based on your relevance in their life. And the way to be relevant is to demonstrate you know them and their problems in their language, right? So it's very, very clear. If you're clear, then there's no reason to gatekeep information, right? Like at this point, we can be as helpful. Like here's an example, and I'm still so nervous about this. My new book comes out in October, and what you traditionally do is you put up a landing page and you say, give me your email and I'll send you a chapter. Like that's the classic playbook. And I'm sort of like, what if I just gave them why is their email? Because you do all sorts of tricks, like tell me where to send it. It turns out you could just download it now. Like you just press a button and it says download and then it's there. There's no more like I need to mail it to you. So I was like, what if I skip the give me your email? And everybody I've talked to is like, well, then you don't have their email address. I'm like, well, I could put right below it, if you enjoy this and you'd like updates. Well, if you're an adult and you like something that someone says, you know how to find them. No one needs to trick you. And so that's one example of be generous. Like just download the excerpt here. And then the excerpt, the last page of the excerpt said, hey, if you'd like updates, you can always get them here in your inbox, right?
Yeah.
It's not very hard. So I think being generous, there's sometimes this fear that if I give too much away, people won't need me. And your audience particularly, that's the furthest thing from the truth. I know the feeling because I felt the same way. And I still do, as I just demonstrated. But it's the furthest thing. The more you help, the more you tell them, specifically if it's in their language and it's relevant, if it's clear, the more you help them, the more they'll want to pay you to have that help. And if they don't want to pay you, guess what? There's no amount of trickery that in being not generous is going to change that anyway. So who cares?
One of our taglines here is be your own loud. And that takes on many, many meanings and is for Kirk and I, it's a deep philosophical foundation of who we are and the company that we wanted to build. And that's really your third tactic here, which is be human, right? Be yourself. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think this is getting increasingly important as we increasingly rely on automation, AI tools. So much of the perception around the technical component of an advisor's job, and again, I want to make sure I use the word here, perception. The perception around the technical component is that it can feel sometimes like a commodity, like I could get it anywhere. What they can't get is you, right? Mm-hmm. Deeply connected, deeply present, deeply interested you. And so I think in a world where there might be some fear, and I actually think at this point, like some reasonable fear around pieces of a job being replaced
Sure.
The solution isn't to become better at that. The solution is to become more human, right? Like to go the other. We started asking this question a year or two ago, like, what are we going to do in a world where content is ubiquitous? What are we going to do in a world like that? Well, content can't replicate the experience of sitting around my fireplace at one of the retreats we do.
Yeah.
Right. Or having a meal together.
Mm-hmm.
Or having a deep conversation where we look one another in the eyes like we are here. So that's what I mean is like, be who you are. Like, give yourself back to all of your stuff, right? Give yourself. What if you have always thought like, man, why in the hell do we meet and again, nothing wrong with people who want to meet in the conference room, but let's say you have this feeling where you're like, why do we meet in a conference room under fluorescent lights with no windows? This is crazy. You can't make good decisions here. You know what I want to do? I want to do all my meetings while walking on trails.
Mm-hmm.
I know an advisor who does that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
So that's deeply human. It's deeply you. It's deeply clear, and it involves permission, and it's scary, and it's outside of the box. It's all the things that you love. So I think that's what I mean by be human.
Yeah. One of my oldest coaching clients that I had when I started working for my consultancy back many, many moons ago, he was the financial chef, Carl. And every one of his client meetings, he was actually a cordon bleu trained chef, and he would actually prepare beautiful meals and would be cooking while they were sitting around the kitchen, and then they would eat together. His closing rate was like 90%.
Matt, this is a crazy story because I met a guy, and it would be so fun if he's listening to email you, who has a mobile, like a mobile kitchen. That's what he's an advisor.
I think we're talking about the same guy.
And would pull up at the house.
Yeah. So we are talking about the same guy.
Very cool. So cool. I remember just being like, are you kidding me? That is so great.
I actually said this at a speech that I had a little while ago. I said, I don't mean to be mean to all of you advisors out there, but like, a lot of things that you're hanging your hat on is what makes you great is going to be replaced by automation, right? I mean, you look at being able to create a balanced portfolio that's a 60-40 portfolio, right. And I can ask AI to base that 60-40 off of every major smart financial decision that's ever been made or model it after Warren Buffett or whatever, right? It's the human component of it right now, but you've taken this to another level, and there is something about, and I'm going to harken back to Jolt, actually, the first Jolt that you and I were at, which is a big conference in financial services. If you have not attended it, you should. It's absolutely amazing. And you had the campfire, dude. You had the little, I think you had a Land Rover down there and a campfire, and a little tent and all this stuff. You have had so much success in building a community. We haven't really had a guest on yet of this new show who's successfully built a community of fans, of people who don't just love you and like your thought leadership, but also want to be together with the other people who think like that. Can you talk a little bit about how you've built that community, but more importantly, how you've maintained it?
I actually mean this, like, to the degree that we've been able to do what you just said. It's largely about trying to get my own ego out of the way.
Oh,
right. Like not, it is really interesting. We hold retreats at the house here in Park City for groups of about 12 advisors. And there was a group recently, what month I think it was the May retreat, that on Friday, the retreat ends at noon on Friday. And we do that on purpose because you're in Park City and like maybe you want to stay the weekend. Well, the whole group really decided that the whole group had already decided. They didn't know, they hadn't communicated, but the whole group had decided to stay. And so they all went to dinner Friday night. And I couldn't go. I'm not even sure I was invited, to be honest. But I couldn't go. And I talked to them the next day. Talked to one of them the next day. I'm like, hey, how was that? And they're like, it was amazing. I'm like, was it? Sorry, I couldn't make it. And they're actually like, no, it was better that you weren't there.
Yeah.
Right. Like it. And so I think there's an element of just trying to get, and let me just mention, I think one of the most undervalued pieces of an advisor's business, and I've been thinking about this for 20 years, and I can give you some examples on how to, but we don't, even if we don't want to go there. the most undervalued piece of your business, I still think, is the collective intelligence of your clients. Because look, it largely operates as a hub and spoke thing, like you to the client, you to the client, you to the client. I used to do this often. Like Karen would have a question about a real estate deal she's working on, and I would sit there and stare at the list. I had a binder for each client in my shelf, and I would stare and be like, oh, you know what? That deal sounds a lot like Sarah's deal. And then I'd call Sarah and be, Sarah, I have another client. Would it be okay if I introduce you to? I wish we should get better at that at scale. And I think that would largely be you getting out of the middle and facilitating these connections. So the degree to which we've been successful at that at all around community, it's like largely getting my own need for the importance or center of attention out of the way, which has drifted as I got a little bit older. But I do think advisors could do, I think there's a massive opportunity. Like you belong to a collective intelligence group now, right? And so that's I guess that's how I'd answer your question, is getting my own ego out of the way.
We run a program called Sonic Boom Coaching. It's for people who have existing podcasts who want to plan, perform, produce, and promote their show better. And we ran our first class. And of course, as you know, your first class are the early adopters and most likely people that you're close with, because they want to help you out. And this first class was unbelievable. And I remember my team called one of the participants and said, was getting testimonials. And she said, well, I don't think Matt's going to like to hear this, but the most valuable part of the whole coaching program wasn't him. It was the people who I got to meet, the other advisors who I got to bounce ideas off of. And this as well as I do, at some level that stings just a little bit, but it is also a nice piece of humble pie that you need to eat, that a lot of times we just need to be the facilitators for the community without it being all about ourselves. And what you said about advisors, dude, advisory boards, real actual client events that aren't bring a friend and, come drink wine, all of the really highly organized stuff. I think advisors are really missing out on really leaning back into their client base. And if they all become a community, then you're in forever, man. I mean, they're never going to leave you.
Yeah, for sure. I particularly think that among, like, if I started an RIA firm, which I'm tempted almost every day to, if I started another one, I would want to work with entrepreneurs that had had a successful exit. And then this is all it would be like, you're almost like a venture firm at that point. Like you're just making connections to people who are doing things. I would work with VCs and entrepreneurs, and then I would make a huge component of it becoming incredibly valuable as a connector between the two.
Yeah. Well, you have been so wonderfully giving of all of your brilliance. I really do want to talk about your book. So let's take a few minutes. Let's talk the origin of the book, what it's about. We're going to make sure we have all of the links in the show notes if they want to get that chapter from you. But yeah, tell us about the book, man.
Yeah, super jazzed about it. My last book came out 11 years ago, so I've been resisting. And there isn't a month that goes by that either my agent or the publisher or my wife or somebody says, when are you going to write another book? And I've been like, nope. Until like 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, man, we got to do something to lower the global anxiety around money. Like and I have this really strong theory that part of the reason we send, like, the people out there out the window, and me, all of us, struggle with money is because we think it's supposed to be a math problem. And then we go to touch it and we feel fear and anxiety and apathy and all these words we hear. And so I think real good financial decisions happen in conversation. And we're not very good at that. None of us are. We've been taught to not talk about it. And so I just wanted to create what I'm calling a conversation grenade, right? Like something you can kind of toss into a room and conversations will break out. That's how people have always used the sketches. So I took a couple of years and talked to every publisher that had ever expressed any interest in like allowing me to do something that, if you were to put it on a spectrum from personal finance to poetry, it would be much closer to the poetry side. Like short, tight. So it's 101. It's called Your Money: Reimagining Wealth Through 101 Simple Sketches. It's 101 sketches with 101 essays. And some of the essays are 2 sentences. And it's really meant to be, and every one of them, like, this is my last 2 books I worked really hard on, but I didn't work as hard as like this, every single word. Like, I know every word and like, I am proud of every single thing in here. And the publisher allowed me to do it 7 by 7. So it lots of white space. It feels completely different. And so I'm just hopeful that it will be, I'm not really even like thinking of it as a book. I'm just like, look, could this be a tool for conversations? That's the goal.
Nice. And it's coming out when?
In October. And, I'll tell you, Matt, this will be the first place I'll talk about this. I'm not sure it'll work. So it'll be kind of funny if it doesn't work. This will be great, right? Like, if this doesn't work, then this will be a good example of trying something. I think that I think behaviorgap.com is going to be taken over by a voice AI agent that is trained. And I'm not talking about a chat bot. I'm talking about an actual trained voice AI agent. And it's the first book I think that will ever be published that you can have a conversation with.
Wow.
And in early testing, I just showed my wife last night, and she was like, how did it know? Like, how? So, like, you show up with a question, we engage a bit, and it goes down, and like essay 68 about this, and what does that bring up? And what was your earliest memory? And then boom, boom, boom. And suddenly you're 15 minutes into this conversation with the wisest money friend you've ever had, this AI agent. I'm really jazzed about it. So let's just see if that, either A, I'm going to get a bunch of emails saying, where the hell? Or B, like, that's really fun. So yeah. I'm thinking all the way through, like, it's just a tool for conversations. How could you have a conversation with the book?
Well, I look forward to that, man. Absolutely. So where can people go to get their chapter and find out what's going on?
We can do 2 things. We've got an advisor exclusive excerpt that the publisher allowed me to put together, which is the cover, the intro, the table of contents, and 7 of the best things that we can just send you as a PDF. And Matt, you can decide how you want people to get that. You can put it in the show notes after we talk. They can, however the easiest to get that. You can also go to behaviorgap.com, and soon enough, there will be either a voice agent you can talk to or a button you can just press download, and I won't take any of your information, and you'll just have an excerpt. Behaviorgap.com.
We'll make sure that we've got those links in the show notes. Well, listen, man, I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What should I have asked you that I didn't?
You know what's coming to mind is, why do you care so much?
All right. Answer that question.
It's fascinating to me. As soon as you slow down a minute, right, and just check in with, like, and I loved how earlier you said that your wife even knows when your shoulders hunch up. Like, that to me is a real important pointer to your body often knows way before your mind is going to know. And so if you can get in connection with that, and I just noticed that same experience, like, as soon as you slow down, I sort of feel it whenever I talk about the work that advisors do. I just have this sort of flood. It's like 1,000,000 flashcards in my mind, just, of like the impact that you've had on people's lives, the stories that I've heard. And I have the other side of that too, which is, hundreds and hundreds of emails, hundreds and hundreds a week. So thousands and thousands at this point of emails from the people. And it's not getting any better. Do you know what I mean? Like, our feeling of safety and security, our feeling of being enough, the number of conversations I'm having with 55 to 65-year-olds who have made it and then are saying, why am I so lonely?
Yeah.
Right. Like, is that getting any better? And I kind of feel like I get to see both sides, because I know the solution to that worry and concern and fear and enough and safety and security. Like, it's at the very least, it's facilitated by a real financial advisor. And so that's why I care, is because this is such an interesting industry, because the work you do has such a massively compounding effect on the world. And like, I'm thinking like the conversations around the dinner table. Do you know what I mean? Like, how I react when my son says, how come we can't afford that? Like how I feel when I walk to the mailbox and I open the mailbox and there's a letter from the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
Like your audience has an impact on those moments. That's crazy. Like what else do you, other than maybe some weird version of health? I don't know of any other place like that. So that's why I care. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome, man. And amen to all of that, dude. I wholeheartedly agree. I remember when I stopped being a therapist and became a consultant in financial services, and all my therapist friends were like, you sold out. I was like, dude, do you know the power that these people have and how important those conversations are? And if I can bring any of my therapeutic training or techniques to help advisors do that better, I just think it's the right thing to do. So, all right, everybody, that's a wrap for this episode of Rise Above the Noise. If this conversation gave you something to think about, make sure you share it with somebody who'd appreciate it. And of course, make sure that you like and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Okay. Please go to the show notes and download the Carl Richards playbook. They're going to be fantastic. You're going to love them. And by the way, you're going to be able to get all of the playbooks from all the episodes in one location. So download as many as you'd like. But listen, thanks for listening, and go make your voice impossible to ignore. My name is Matt Halloran, and I'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Hey, don't touch that dial yet. Before you go, get a copy of the tools and strategies to rise above the noise shared by our guests in this week's playbook. To claim your free playbook and access our growing collection, go to proudmouth.com/playbook. Hey, thanks for tuning in. Here's to rising above the noise, one episode at a time.